That's a pretty evil dude.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
not a nice guy. But I mean, it's such a rich thing to play someone who is generally accepted as being, because the evil guy doesn't believe that they're evil.
Absolutely.
Doesn't think they're doing wrong. And so to try and come at that from a completely different side, like he was listed as professor, but honestly, I think they should have named it creepy professor. And to be able to sort of just come at things from a completely different angle than what you would, that's where the real acting is. That's where the real fun is.
Talent Talk is sponsored by Company of Rogues Actors Studio, New York-style training for actors at all stages of their journey. With our part-time classes and full-time masterclass program, Rogues provides a unique post-secondary option under the guidance of working professionals. Mentoring and developing professional film and theater artists since 1993, Calgary's longest-running independent studio offers practical hands-on classes in a positive, supportive environment. Check us out at corogues.com. Company of Rogues, passionate about the art of acting.
Hey everybody, I'm Gary McLean and you're watching Talent Talk. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't done so already, please do go to the Talent Talk YouTube channel and subscribe today. As always, the support's appreciated. And also just a reminder that this and previous episodes are available on podcast mediums. Basically, whatever you listen to, it's there. So look for Talent Talk, look for Talking With, and you'll find something. So check that out. And finally, we have sponsors this year, which I'm super excited about. Very happy with that. We have 6 Degrees Sound and Music, whose booth we are currently in. So thanks to those guys for helping out. And then we have Workflow Film, I'm looking at them right now. So thank you to Workflow Film for doing the camera work here today. We have Heard of One Media. We have Counting Coup, Indigenous Film Academy. We have RJ Talent, a local agency here. We have Company of Rogues, which is a Calgary local acting studio. So great school, so check them out online. And finally, we have ACTRA Alberta. And on that note of ACTRA Alberta being a sponsor, we have a guest from ACTRA. So today we have the Alberta President?
Yes.
Yes.
The actual Alberta President. I'm sorry, just taking a drink from my lovely Talent Talk mug.
There you
Available
go.
online for $49.99.
Yes.
Limited supply.
Let's do that. Because it is very limited right now. So let's get those on order. So yes, we have Blair Young today. So thanks, Blair, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Gary. I remember you talked about this. We were in a meeting somewhere and you were talking about the show and you were talking about all the people you're having on. I'm like, when the hell is he going to invite me to get on this show? So this is great.
Exactly, right. I'm a little behind schedule. It seems to be my daily thing, just be behind schedule. So, but here we are.
Yeah.
We're here today.
Excited.
So I do want to talk, let's get right to the brass of things. You have been an actor for how long now?
Well, I graduated from Queen's University back in the 80s with a drama degree, went back home to Toronto and started acting right away. But I took a whole decade gap after I got married, where I just kind of like, I'm not really I have to be a contributing member of this family and provide for my family. So I went back to school and taught for a few years. Then I was working in media for almost a decade. And my wife's job brought us to Calgary back in 2005. And so for the first year I worked at City TV. I was a cameraman, editor. And then there was a whole convergence and sale of the property of Chum Properties. And so I wasn't there anymore. And then I worked for 3.5 years at 660 News. 660 News Time, 10:44. That's what I did for 3.5 years, which was a very fun job, but it turns out that there's actually a cycle to news, and it actually became amazingly repetitive. Like you'd think, oh, it's different every day. Yes and no. And then eventually I got out of that, and I was in my late 40s going, what the hell am I going to do now? And I was like, I guess got to go back to what I love. And so I went back to acting, and literally within the first week I booked a Christmas show out at Stage West. And I was like, okay, this feels like the universe is telling me that this is the right choice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, and then so that news experience, if you will, came in handy because I've noticed you actually played a few of those types of roles as well.
I played I had the longest, the longest chunk of monologue I've ever had to learn was for Fortunate Son, where I played the CBC anchor, and he's just supposed to be sort of talking in the background, and then he pipes up and that's when Robert Kennedy is shot. That's what he's the CBC version of that on the day. And I remember I had like one line, and they put me as principal, and I'm like, that's strange. Why they'd give me one line but made me principal? And the night before, like at 7:00 at night, I get this 2-page monologue. Could you please have this ready for tomorrow? And I'm like, there's going to be a teleprompter, right? Because that's what real news guys have. No, there's not going to be a teleprompter. And so I didn't get any sleep that night. But and I managed to spit it all out once or twice. But yeah, no, I do. I love playing the news roles because, we all grew up with various, we're all from different regions. I grew up mostly in Toronto. And so, but we all have those memories of watching news with our parents. And those news guys were like important because they told us what was going on. So to get the chance to play. And plus, my uncle was a news guy for CBC in Quebec for a while. So it was kind of fun to do something like that. Yeah, I love the chance to use my voice.
Right. And so do you do actually a lot of voice work as well?
I do. I've been in this studio more than once recording VOs. I think the most fun one is the last Easter. The last Easter was the 70th anniversary of the Lindor chocolate bunny. And so there's that same commercial we've seen every Easter of like the chocolatier pouring chocolate into the molds. It's the same commercial every year, but they decided for this one year they were going to add a little something, so they needed a new voice just for the 1 year. So for 1 year, I was the voice of the Swiss chocolatier, and I had to I put a little bit of an accent on. But yeah, no, I've done ads for Lindor. I did a huge one for Subway that played during COVID, and I had people who just randomly text me, suddenly have the urge to order Subway, and there was one I did a tagline that I think I literally said, "Freedom is something." It was like 3 words. And the damn thing just keeps keeps paying out like a slot machine. The voice world is a really weird thing because it's really tough to break in.
Right.
And then, but if you can do it, there's the chance to get some pretty lucrative deals. I love the voice work because it's just the chance to, like, you have one thing. It's not a costume, and it's not a set, and it's not your eyes, and it's not your face. You have one thing to get across what the ad agency wants you to get across. So I love doing voice work. I always have.
Yes, and I understand what you're saying about difficult to break in. I'm still looking to break in, so if anybody's looking,
Christian, if you're listening,
and you like my voice, I mean, obviously that's key. I'm here. No, that's amazing. When it comes, like, how long have you actually been in Calgary, I guess? Because you said you went back.
Yeah, this summer it'll be 18 years, which I just can't. Like, we came as Leanne, my wife, works for Imperial Oil, and they had their head office in Toronto. They decided to move to Calgary. And at the time, we just had our second child. She was less than 2. And we're like, oh, this sounds like a good adventure. They said, if you stay for 2 years, you can come back to Toronto, and it's all even. You just have to stay for 2 years. And then, because they gave us all sorts of benefits for coming out here. And we're like, I'll just go for 2 years, go back to Toronto, it'll be great. But, the kids get their hooks in a community when they're young, and we're like, this place is sunny. Is it really that gray in Toronto? Did we both grow up in Toronto not realizing what a gray, and it actually is a fairly gray city. I think it's more about the fact that this is just a remarkably sunny place.
Right.
And so, suddenly 2 years has turned into 18. We still have 3 or 4 boxes in the basement that have yet to be unpacked from that 2005 move, but looks like we're here for the long haul.
I know the feeling. We actually moved to Ontario. We were only there for about 2.5 years, but a little town called Norwich, just south of Woodstock, basically.
Yeah.
And decided it wasn't for us, but it was a good experience to at least make that trip. And the kids were young enough where we could actually do that, but we missed it. What we actually missed the most was the mountains.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny you should say that because both my girls have I kind of said, get out of here and go away to school and become your own people. So my oldest graduated from Queens, and my youngest is now going to UNB in Fredericton. So the oldest went to Queens, which is where I went, which was it's kind of a remarkably emotional moment when she hadn't even talked about that school and suddenly said, Dad, I applied to Queens, and if I get in, I think I'm going to go. And I was like, oh my God, that's so amazing. I had no idea it would impact me, but I was really proud that she went to the same school, but just as proud of the other one who's in this Fredericton's a beautiful town, and that campus is like 200 years old, and it's gorgeous. So she's having a great time out in UNB.
And drama related?
No, neither of them. I mean, they've both, the older one took some drama classes, but no, the older one graduated with a biology degree, and she's trying to get into med school. And the other one's doing a psychology/criminology degree. So.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do they have an interest, or are you like the only one in the family?
They've been, if you look really hard, you'll see them in some of the productions that have been shot here. They played David Trimble's daughters in Forsaken, for example, and they were recently, even just this past little while, they were both in the rave scenes in the high school series. And they've been on, they were on Fargo, and they've done Heartland. And so, they've always participated in those things, but they didn't find the same pull to it that I have.
Okay. And I kind of want to jump to Under the Banner of Heaven. Because for me, anyway, and I think you had mentioned, some other folks had mentioned things to you as well, that was an interesting character, and I think definitely out of character for you.
Well, was it?
I'm not sure.
Let's hope so. You know what? It's funny because the last 2 or 3 roles that I've gotten, both in theater and film, have been that sort of, not quite a bad guy, but just, not a nice guy. Mm-hmm. And that is the most fun. In fact, the first one I did Bright Star out at Rosebud, which is the sort of slightly bluegrass musical written by Stevie Martin and Edie Brickell. Beautiful, beautiful show. And it's based on a story back a long time ago where there was this child found basically sitting in a suitcase alongside a train track, and nobody knew where it came from, and people were trying to figure out who this baby was and where they came from. And that inspired Edie Brickell to write the story. And my character, at one point, to try and protect the family name, throws a baby that's in a suitcase off a train. That's a pretty evil dude.
Yeah,
That's not a nice guy. But I mean, it's such a rich thing to play someone who is generally accepted as being, because the evil guy doesn't believe that they're evil.
Absolutely.
Doesn't think they're doing wrong. And so to try and come at that from a completely different side, like he was listed as professor, but honestly, I think they should have named it creepy professor. And to be able to sort of just come at things from a completely different angle than what you would, that's where the real acting is. That's where the real fun is. I mean, yeah, of course it's nice to play good guys just because people like good guys, but I certainly get response. I show up on set to do some stand-in work or to do another role, and people will be like, "Oh man, I saw you on Under the Banner." I just wanted to say, and it's from like different departments, like hair and makeup and grips, and then other actors, who I haven't seen in a while. So to work with someone who was right then so current and so busy and hot and so of the moment.
Yes,
she was a lovely, lovely lady, and it was really odd because we shot that thing like 30 times. It was all handheld, so we basically did the whole thing over and over and over again, and it was a lot of fun to work on for sure.
Well, it was again creepy. It was he was creepy.
He was a bit of a misogynist and 2-timer, 5-timer, whatever.
Yeah, but I loved her reaction to it as well. Like I thought she played that brilliantly, just to shut you right down.
Yeah,
great.
Put me right in my back foot. Probably, and probably in that character, the first time that's ever happened, which sort of, I think we sort of came to that conclusion that, no one else had ever reacted that way in this community. That was strange. So there was all sorts of fun things to play there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, first off, I'm just going to say, if you haven't seen Under the Banners of Heaven, it's currently on Disney. Check it out. Fun series. Tons
of local talent on that show.
I was going to say a fun series, but I don't know if it's a fun series.
Yeah.
It's an interesting show for sure. So definitely check it out. So because it was such a little bit of a different character in terms of creepiness and stuff like that, where did you actually have to go, or how did you get there to actually portray that character?
I mean, everybody acts in a different way. I don't do a lot of, this is going to make it sound like I was typecast and that I am that guy. I don't do a lot of I mean, I guess I try to find, like you always try to find what is the, as I said, the evil guy doesn't think he's evil. So you have to find where they're coming from. So in that Baby Train one, it's like, I got to protect my family's name. My son is being, there's an illegitimate child. This is the safest, most sure way that he doesn't lose the family. And so for that one, he's just, I don't want to malign a, particular religion, but, the community worked in such a way that was normal for him. The way he acted. And it was at a time just in the early 80s when women were just kind of starting to become anchors. I'm giving away the whole scene almost now, but anyway. So I think I just use the words, and I use the person. I mean, there's a lot of people that go for, method acting. And I think, I guess ultimately I'm more of the John Gielgud school. John Gielgud? No. Who's the guy that was opposite Dustin Hoffman in Marathon Man? Because there's that famous line where Dustin's character has been literally awake for like 32 hours. And oh my gosh.
Laurence Olivier.
Thank you. Good Lord.
Yeah.
57 is awful, by the way. I'm not even 57 yet. I'm almost there. But, and so, he looks like crap. And so I guess, the famous quote is that he says, "My dear boy, you look like trash. What happened?" "Well, his character is supposed to be awake for 32 hours, so I didn't go to sleep for 32 hours." To which he allegedly replied, "Why don't you just act, dear boy?" Something like that. So I guess I'm more of that school ultimately, that I use the words, use who's opposite me, and make that and help that build. Funny enough, when I remember doing the callback, which was a Zoom callback, the first time I've ever done that before, and the director David Mackenzie was always like, "I know that, it's easy to make everything very obvious about who he is and what he is, but let's try and make it subtler." And so I did it another time. I was like, "That's good. Let's make it subtler." "That was good. Let's make it subtler." So he wanted it to be barely bubbling at the surface. And so I thought those were great notes, because I think it really helped to make sure that Daisy's character, who is who the story's about, make sure that comes out more than, it's not about me, which is why the character doesn't have a name. Like, he's just Professor. I think that was part of just the whole thing, that we're telling her story. We're not telling his story. And I think that, and he kept grounding, and every once in a while he did come up to me one time and said, "I like that take. That was creepy. I was creeped out." So I think we're right where we should be. So
I'm wondering, because again, you've been acting for so long, how did this all transition to your role within ACTRA?
I've just always kind of run for stuff. And so I remember Tina was talking. Tina Alford is a branch rep. I'm sure most people out there know who she is, but I remember I was only recently maybe I had 2 credits, and I was calling the office and asking questions about the IPA and about what was appropriate. And this was happening to me on set, and I don't think that that's supposed to be right. And she was like, this is a guy who obviously likes to ask questions. So I think on like the third phone call, she's like, "Hey, do you want to be on council?" I'm like, "Oh, is there a council? That sounds like fun." And that was a long time ago now. I think it's 9 years ago, roughly. And Duv Lang was the president at the time, and he'd just been president for 10 years. And after my first term, just being quote unquote a member at large is what it's called, he was like, "Hey, have you thought about being president?" And I'm like, "It seems like a big step." But in the end, I took it on, and it's become a big part of my life for sure. I mean, now we've changed the structure a bit for ACTRA Alberta. So now the president is also the national councillor. So I go to Toronto for meetings. I've been involved on the IPA negotiating. So that's the independent production agreement that governs how we're treated on set, how much we're paid, all those things. I've been in the committee for the last 3 iterations of that and participated in the actual negotiations. And I'm on committees, and it's just, I think it's important to be informed about what you do as much as you can be, and then 2, to try and not necessarily give back. That sounds so trite and so pat, but just to, I think, give forward, I guess, is more the thing. And so, at some point someone's going to take the presidency from me, from my cold dead hands. But, and so I'm already, I already see from the current council people that I think would make great leaders. And so, it's just been, as I said, it's just been a part of what I do. It's not like we make a ton of money. We get small per diems and honoraria for the days, that we go and attend meetings. It's just because I like to be part of the process, and I think it's important to be part of the process.
Now, for actors, and I know I was one of them as well when I first started doing the acting thing, like that seems to be the goal for a lot of fresh actors. It's like, I need to become union.
Yeah.
So from your perspective, what would be the path for someone trying to get there.
It's just, people say, how can I join the union? And unfortunately, you can't just join the union. You're sort of asked to join. I mean, there's the three levels, right? There's the background performer, and all you have to do is have worked 15 days in a year, and you just bring your vouchers and you become a background member. And then there's the apprentice member and the full member. And to become an apprentice member, you have to do a numbered role. It doesn't have to have lines. It can be a silent role, or you do a principal or even a silent on camera role in a commercial, or do a voice role. My first thing was a voice role. My first thing was singing tenor in a GMC financing commercial. It was recorded right here, actually, and it was for the States only. And it was it was a reworking of "We Wish You a Merry Christmas," but it was like "We Wish You a Happy Financing." Like, the words were atrocious, but it was my first ACTRA gig. And once you get one, then they invite you to be in the union as an apprentice, and then once you get three, you become a full member. The path is simply to show an interest. I think you pretty much have to find an agent. I think that is probably the most important thing. And we do have a page on the ACTRA Alberta website that is a good resource for that. It shows a list of agents who've signed on to a code of conduct. Just so, because they're, especially like you're starting to see it on Facebook. There are those scam places that are just, it seems like every day I scroll past another one. Come and be on Disney shows. Come this weekend. And I try whenever I can to write in there, don't sign anything and do not pay anything. You do not have to pay to have an agent. You only pay them when you get work. Don't be pressured. And it's tough. Like, parents want they're in part they're living through their kids, and they want the best for their kids, and so they get pressured to give. And there's some just heartbreaking stories of the thousands of dollars that parents have paid for their child for essentially worthless.
Right.
So when in doubt, talk to other people, and don't feel afraid to call the ACTRA office. All the ladies there are sympathetic, and they know the ins and outs, and they know these companies, they know who they are, and they know who the good ones and the bad ones are. I shouldn't say good ones and bad ones, ultimately. That's a bit of a character assessment. But as I say, there's a list of agencies that are totally above board, and they've signed on. And once you get on there, and it's becoming hard because we're getting pretty busy. And so, like, a lot of these agencies are pretty full. Yeah. I'm expecting, 2 or 3 new ones to pop up soon. And maybe they haven't. I'm just not aware of them yet. But start with the agents, because that's how you get found by the casting directors, who mostly is Rhonda Fasecki. There's Jackie Lind, who often works here because she's from here originally, and Sue Bristow, and now you see Jason Terrian getting involved. And there's lots of ways to get involved. But yeah, you just have to get in there and get those auditions, and then start showing up and being you. And the hardest thing to come to terms with as an actor is that the only role you ultimately have to play is yourself. And it's so hard to accept that, because we all assume that we're not, well, no, they can't want me. The story's not about me. It's about this other person. But they want your version of that person. And no one else can act the way you act or be the way you are. And you just have to eventually sink into that and live that through those words. And if you do that, and you do it, from a place of honesty and truth, I think eventually that is what the talent is just being able to apply who you are to that character, and people will see it, and eventually you will get cast.
So once you are a member, and this is actually more of a personal curiosity, the one thing I've always struggled with, in my opinion, is the transferability of, saying, working in BC or Toronto.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot of that's due to tax breaks, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But would you have any thoughts or recommendations for somebody who is looking to expand outside our Alberta borders?
For sure. I mean, it makes sense to go elsewhere, for sure, and try that and become known there. It's really tough to find agents in those cities, I found. I tried finding one in Vancouver. I had one briefly. It didn't really change things in terms of me getting auditions in Vancouver. So, I think it's all about where you are in life too. Like, I mean, when I had my 2 kids growing up, I wasn't going to suddenly uproot myself and go to Vancouver while my wife stays here with the kids. I was, and I'd already lived in Toronto, and I didn't really want to go back after experiencing all the beautiful sunniness of Calgary. But yeah, certainly there's lots of stories of Calgarians who have gone abroad, and abroad, I mean Toronto, Vancouver, and done a role or two and come back and suddenly, and it's funny how even just when they go there, they'll get the phone call, hey, can you come back and do this role? Even though I know you just moved to Toronto, but now so there is, and I can't, it's hard to fight, but there is this notion from producers that Calgary equals not great performers, not a deep talent pool. And so if you're young and you're really hungry, then that might be an option for you. Obviously, we are exploding right now. A little blip in the horizon, what with the writer's strike and the potential other strikes that might follow. But thanks to The Last of Us, we are firmly on. I mean, we just won a big award at the Cannes Festival for like best film destination or something, and then all the sort of ranch properties together kind of won best location for this year. So the world knows we're here, and they're going to keep coming. And it's just a question of how do we convert that into making them realize that not only is the nature beautiful, and not only are the crews talented, but the acting talent is just as vibrant, just as broad, and we can not only can Alberta represent everything from small town to big city to the mountains, but the actors can represent all those things too, and all the different people in the world. And so we need to. It's going to be tough to convince them for sure, but 12, 15 years ago, Atlanta was us. They had $300 million in filming, and now they're at $7 billion. So, and are we going to go there that far, that fast? Probably not. But I see nothing but positives for the Calgary film scene. And we see Calgarians coming back, the Chad Rooks of the world coming back and making this their home. We see crew people that were in Vancouver or even Winnipeg and Toronto, and they're coming back because they see and they hear that Calgary is pretty piping hot right now. So it's a pretty good place to be. So yes, you can try those other things for sure. Nothing wrong with that. And it's a great experience too. It's sort of, it's just a different feel everywhere. And it's funny how people, when they're on set from Toronto, Vancouver, and they're just like, it's such a different feel here. It's nice. It's such a community group feeling. Some of them feel like sometimes, somebody would stab them in the back in a heartbeat to get that role. And they feel that this doesn't feel like that here, that it's everybody's happy for everybody else's success. Right. And hopefully our success won't change that. Maybe, I guess it's possible that we could turn into that, but
hopefully not.
Hopefully not. I mean, this is it's a great community here of film and TV, and I love being a part of it. Every day on set is better than any other day at an office desk. No offense to those people who have office desk jobs.
That is my day job.
But for me, being on set is just, it's, I think I've said it before. It's like going to camp. It's like going to day camp. Yeah. Everybody knows everybody, and there's a little hut that gives you snack foods, and I love set. Set's just the best place in the world.
No, and I completely agree, and I also agree, and that's kind of why we do the show.
Yeah,
there's so much talent here in Alberta, and it's a great community. So we like to share that knowledge. And make people aware. So on that note, I think we're going to kind of wrap things up here because we are near the end of the show. But one last question. What's next on the horizon acting-wise for Blair Young? So
I'm currently, as I said, I'm standing in right now on Billy the Kid. That's going to keep me busy for most of the summer. And then the big thing I'm looking forward to is at the fall, the Christmas show at Rosebud Theatre is a play called All Is Calm. I think it's subtitled The 1917 Soldier Story, something like that. But basically, it's a musical. There's like 8 or 10 guys, all harmony, no instruments, beautiful arrangements of Christmas carols, and interspersed with you remember in the First World War, 1917, I guess it was. There's that story of the British and German soldiers who came out of their foxholes, and on Christmas they had a sort of unofficial ceasefire, and they exchanged pictures and presents and chocolate and talked about families and played soccer, and as in the Pipes of Peace video from Paul McCartney back in the 80s. And so all of the text is from actual letters of soldiers of the day explaining what happened on that amazing day, both from the German soldiers and from the English soldiers. So it's a really cool, very intimate little story, little Christmas story. And it was supposed to happen back in 2020 and got canceled because of COVID. So I was really hoping that I get the chance to be part of it. And sure enough, it is part of the season this year at Rosebud. So I urge everybody, I think we open like November 3rd-ish, and we'll be playing right through until Christmas time. So If you're looking for a different Christmas experience, it can be a bit treacherous on the roads, but I've never had an issue getting there or back. But Rosebud's a beautiful place. It's allowed me to do some really, really fun and great theater work, and it's a little known gem. I think people have sort of heard of it, but if you ever get the chance, head out there and check out what they're doing, and hopefully you'll come and see me in all is calm, and I will be more than welcome, more than excited to talk to you about it after the show.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you, Blair, so much for
Gary.
coming on the show and chatting with me. Appreciate it. And for the folks out there watching, listening, thanks for joining in, watching the show. Definitely appreciate it. Just a reminder, please do subscribe on that YouTube channel. You can help us out, and share. Let people know about it. Thank you. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks, everybody.